All right, so let's get things rolling. I've got a few housekeeping items that I want to go through. You can just sit. Sit down, Christine, relax. All right, so my name is John Ciovacco. I am the president of Aztech Geothermal, and I am a board member for the New York Geothermal Energy Organization, and this is our conference. This is our spring conference. This is our little baby spring conference. We'll have a much bigger conference in New York City, but this seems big enough, really. I'm already a little intimidated by the city, all the tall buildings, yuck. I'm in the Albany area, so, you know, easily impressed. This is my thing from last year, because I misplaced my one from this year, so I'm hoping I can get a couple more little banners, though. Maybe by New York City I'll have a couple. I know, Jack Deanna is the king of that, so he's the one that showed me the way. So basics of basics. So first of all, I'd like to know how many people are at an NY-GEO conference for the first time. Don't be shy. Yeah, it's a big number. It's a big number. Yep. And actually, some of like our mainstays, they're like, I can't go to 2 conferences, so they're only going to the downstate one. But folks filled in with new folks, and that's terrific, because that's important when you're trying to grow an industry. Basics of basics are there are restrooms over there, and there's restrooms as you go back towards the registration for the hotel. Hopefully folks have figured that out. Everybody's got their name tag. I would just want to thank the conference staff. Zach Fink can't be here today. He had a medical thing that he's going to be fine, but he's not with us. He's our vice president with ZBF Geothermal, and he's also the one that's really going to spearhead some of the New York City stuff because he's a downstate guy. So we'll talk more about that as the conference goes on. Amanda Schneck from Water Furnace was on the committee too. Thanks, Amanda, for all of your help. We had a lot of help from NYSERDA. Scott Smith, Donovan Gordon, John Necroto, all jumped in and helped out trying to organize things. And then Christine Hoffer, our executive director. Let's give her a hand. Put a lot of this stuff together. She knows a lot of you. So today, one of the things, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but this room is the room that we're going to do all the speaking and presenting in. So what happens, for those of you that don't know, is that when we finish here, those air walls here, which are not really made of air, they're actually going to hurt you if you're in the way. We're going to pull those shut, and then there's going to be a session room over here, a session room here, and a session room here. And we actually jump right into that right after this, and then there's a break after that first session. So everybody look alive as the program goes on here. Let me see. Everything that we do today will be recorded. So when someone's speaking, they need to be speaking into a microphone. And when you ask a question, a microphone needs to be brought to you, because that's all going to be recorded. So anything that's on the screen and anything that's said into a microphone. I like it when people introduce themselves when they're on the microphone, so that people listening later and also just people know who you are. So just a quick introduction is always nice. If a microphone gets brought to you, I would love that. And I think that is going to be the very opening. We've got a good program to start things off. We've got Senator Harckham is here, and we're going to hear from him a little bit later. Yep, big advocate for us. Donovan Gordon, who's the director of Community Thermal Networks. I'm going to have to get used to that. The ever-changing title of Donovan Gordon, for those of you that have been following along. So we'll hear from him from NYSERDA. And then Rory Christian, who's the chair of the Public Service Commission, has graced us with his presence. So that'll be terrific as we close up. So I'm going to bring Christine Hoffer up here, who started with us just before, really, almost the conferences last year. That was her first time through. And has been a terrific addition as a follow-on to Bill Nowak, who we'll hear from later in the lunch program, too. And she's going to get us through some of the early stuff here, and we'll keep the program going. So introduce Christine Hoffer. I tell you, if you don't have technical problems, you don't know you're alive. We did it.
So good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here and being a supporter of geothermal in New York State. We can't do this without you, so we really, really appreciate you being here. All you folks in the back, there's plenty of seats, so it'd be really terrific if you came and sat down so we could have you in the pictures. Conferences like this don't happen by chance. They happen because of the planning and the planning committee, but it also comes to realization because of our sponsors. Putting things like this on are not inexpensive, so we need our sponsors to do that, and we're very, very grateful to all the sponsors that stepped forward for this conference here in Albany today. So if I could please ask the sponsors just to stand, and just so we can show our appreciation to all of the folks in the room that are sponsors. So please thank them as you're out and about. The other piece of this is the exhibitors. The exhibitors not only help us by being here and exhibiting from a financial standpoint, but they're also here with their products and services that help move the ground source heat pump industry and the geothermal industry forward. Again, we can't do without them. We need them. We need their products. We need their expertise. So if those exhibitors could also please stand. They are here for you. You want to talk to them. I'm asking you to talk to them because we can't do this without them, without you. So thank you again for the exhibitors and the sponsors for all you do to move geothermal forward in New York State. I also want to just talk about heat pumps. I don't know anything about heat pumps, to be really honest, but I really want everybody's vernacular to change from saying heat pump to saying ground source heat pump. So if you're in the room and you're talking to somebody and they're talking about heat pumps, just say ground source. Ground source heat pump, okay? Or geothermal heat pump if you don't want to say ground source. But just change heat pump to ground source and geothermal heat pump. That'd be great, thank you. One more housekeeping, lunch is in this room. It's gonna be really full. And if you had opted for a vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free dietary, please come to the registration office and get a red ticket. That will help the servers better serve you in ensuring your dietary needs with that as well. So step over to that and do that during the break, but don't forget to visit with all of the exhibitors while you're out there getting that red ticket. So it is my pleasure to now introduce Senator Pete Harckham. The senator was first elected to the New York State Senate in November of 2018. He is the chair of the Senate Environmental Conservation Committee. He is a well-regarded champion of the environment, helping to have passed the toughest climate protection legislation in the nation. Thank you. Harckham also introduced bills later enacted requiring all new passenger car and truck sales to be zero emissions by 2035, streamlining the process for municipal renewable energy projects and protecting the Hudson River from radioactive waste. And if anybody's not from New York, the Hudson River is a very big river, a very important river, so we appreciate that very much. On a personal note here for NY-GEO, and probably the most importantly to us, is that Senator Harckham has been a key champion for our industry. Last year, he sponsored and led passage of a bill that will allow innovations and growth of geothermal in urban environments with the new 500-foot borehole law. This is really, really important to ensure that we can decarbonize and electrify New York State, and so we're very, very appreciative of that. We really are. So with that, I welcome Senator, and thank you so much for being here with us today.
Jens was supposed to be before him.
Sorry.
It's all right.
We always have to have technical problems. Again, look at that. Perfect.
Oh, that's scary.
It's a good look. It's a good look for you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, John. Thank you, Christine. Good morning. I hope there are no small children in the room. I don't want to scare anybody. I am here this morning to say ground source heat pump. I learned my lesson. I am mostly here to just say good morning. welcome you. Hope you have an amazing conference. I ran into my friend Bob Fishman. We used to coach our daughter's soccer team when they were this big, and Bob and I have stayed friends over the years. And he said when he first came to this conference, there were 70 people here. And if you look at the room now, it's just not just an indication of the growth of your organization, but the growth and the health of the industry. And we are at a challenging time, and we're at a really exciting time as we transition our economy. You know, as Christine mentioned, we started with the CLCPA in 2019, then we had the scoping plan, we've got Cap and Invest coming, and now this is really when the rubber meets the road, and your industry is right in the middle of that, because of you know the clean heating and cooling you provide, but the technology is such that it's perfect for decarbonizing our environmental justice communities and the co-pollutants that go along with fossil fuel heating and cooling in those communities. A perfect confluence with our brothers and sisters in labor, because this is about good paying green jobs. And so, you know, as we transition away from dirtier energy and dirtier power, you know, these are the jobs for the men and women in labor. And so you're right at the heart of that. And transforming our communities. We were talking earlier about some major projects we're looking at SUNY Purchase and SUNY Buffalo. You'll hear in a few minutes from Donovan about the exciting work that he and his team are doing with other communities. So things are exploding now, and you know the key is we've got to keep it going and not mess it up. And so from the government standpoint, I just want you to know that you know the legislature is committed to the growth of your industry. You know, we spoke. Christine spoke about the 500-foot bill that we did last year. The governor signed into law. We're working on Senator Kennedy's bill now. We've got that in at least the Senate, one House. We're negotiating that right now as we speak. I'm going to race back in a few minutes. We're working on the budget. But there's a commitment to work with NYSERDA, the PSC, the governor's office, the Senate, and the Assembly, that this is really an exciting time, that things are really going to start moving. And so I'm excited to be here. I'm really more excited to look out and see all of you, and then to hear you're actually doing a bigger conference in the city later in the year. But welcome, have a great conference. Anything that we can do for you, please don't hesitate to call my office. My district office is in Peekskill. We're up here in Albany. But the one thing I always say when folks come to Albany en masse is don't wait to come to Albany to speak to your legislators and to get to know them. Call them in the district office. Introduce yourself. Invite them to your facility. Invite them to come out to see one of your projects. So that way when you come up for a lobbying day or you need something, you already have the relationship. So I know many of you may do that, but if you don't, please look up your assembly member, look up your senator, get to know them in the district, start that relationship, so that as we move things legislatively, you need letters of support, whatever it is, you have that relationship. So we're here for you. Have a great conference. This is really exciting to look out and see everybody here. And thanks for having me, and ground source heat pumps. Thank you.
Wow, it's really starting to catch on. So I'm going to have Jens Ponikau come up here. He is the president of Buffalo Geothermal. We have to have technical problems, or else, again, there's nothing. Life is really not fun without those things. He's the president of Buffalo Geothermal, and he is the president of NY-GEO. Wow, look at that. And he's done some great stuff, and he's got a couple of slides that I'm sort of hoping that we have for him that I promised that I would get up. But I don't see on the slide deck that I'm looking at, because I love technical problems in front of people, because that's what makes my blood flow. Yeah, and then we have that, sure. Design track opening and lunch. I would go with, now I'm gonna, have a dream that I'm naked up on stage now too, on top of it all. There we go, look at that. All right.
Thank you.
To Jens.
Ground source heat pumps, wow. You see what it does to people when they work with us for a year. So Christine was nowhere there a year ago, and now she's ground source heat pumps. I love it. And I thought I'd give a picture of what at least influenced me or made me think in the last year about this technology and where this can go. I showed this one last year because you see those two smokestacks there, remember? One of them is the air conditioning running, the other one is the boiler running, making hot water. So in one way, we're rejecting energy into the atmosphere, and 20 feet to the side, we're burning fossil fuels to make energy. Same energy, thermal energy. And I thought, geez, if we would have a technology where we can take one and put it in the other. Well, wait a minute, we have that technology. So that was kind of my message last year. I'm going to have 3 slides this year, and it's going to have just a few numbers talk, which actually made me think the most about this technology. So, we have an example here. This is a new building, built it to the newest energy standards, about 50 apartments in there, in New Paltz, in a very cold climate. It got down to -6 there last year, and it also got up to 99 degrees in the summertime. So it's kind of funny how that works in the Hudson Valley. However, 2 more slides, simple numbers, because numbers talk, right? First of all, we need to recognize that the average apartment in New York State uses about 600 kilowatt hours a month, and that is without the heating, and this is without the hot water, because that is served by fossil fuels, right? So this building now is completely electrified, and it uses about 60% of what a building uses today without electrification. And this is only electricity. In other words, if we apply this technology, our energy needs actually are going down, not up, in forms of how much electricity we need. Think about that. We don't need more. If we have the right technology, we actually can make this with less. And this is the data. But one slide is even more important, because that looks at the total amount of electricity using. This is the more important slide. If you think about it, the load application for this building was about 1,000 kW, a megawatt. This is what we need on peak, right? Well, then they said, well, wait a minute, we have GEO. This gets down to about 340, 350 kW because we have such an efficient technology. The real measured energy or electricity use of that building on the coldest day of the year, the coldest hour, in the coldest 15 minutes, and in the hottest 15 minutes, was about 1/5, 1/6 of that. This is real data. And the amazing part then also is, because that drives the utility and the capacity we need in the grid. The problem we're having, we have nothing which is dispatchable, and we have nothing which is emission-free. We need to build this. But boy, if we build so much less, we have a winner. And the amazing part was, that it was still using more energy in the summertime for cooling when the sun actually is shining than we used in the wintertime on the coldest 15 minutes of the year. That made me think, and it should make you think. This is actually the solution for the problem we have. It is not the only solution, it's one of the solutions, but it's a clear path forward. We can do this, applying this technology. So I hope you share my excitement, that I'm excited that I'm part of the solution and not part of the problem. Welcome to NY-GEO 2024.
I know. It's the technical problem guy. I'm going to try to solve it. So I'm going to bring Donovan Gordon up here. Donovan Gordon is the Director of Community Thermal Networks. Is that right? As of a couple of weeks ago. And Donovan is so since half of you are new, you don't even know who Donovan is probably. Donovan is a guy that showed up just when we needed him some years ago and took on the geothermal technologies for NYSERDA, basically, which he's had, his program has changed names 3 times, 4 times, a bunch of times. And that just means it's a very dynamic area, and he keeps moving along with it, and he is really fundamental to why all of us are here. He really established something that is become really lasting and really integrated it into New York State policy and into New York State agencies in a way that it was kind of unimaginable at the first Geopalooza 10 years ago when he was just a volunteer. He was just, he was just walking the halls with the rest of us trying to do a good thing. And then he came in and was really a dynamic force in our industry. So, and if I could get his slides up, I think he'd be really happy with me. So I'm going to see how that goes. Never quite sure how that's going to go. Yeah, the formatting on that is totally gone. So we go to the other USB drive. Don't panic, everyone's staring at you. It's fine, they're all friends. I hope. I know, I've never run a conference before. All right, Donovan. Look at that. I kind of made it work. And then he has an exciting element at the end that we'll work on together. Donovan Gordon.
Where you go? Where you go? What did I do? You press this, right? To advance?
Hit.
Enter. Look. There we go. You spoiled the surprise. Anyway, thank you very much for that nice introduction, John. And welcome to the New York-GEO conference. And for those of you first time here, welcome to New York and Albany. I'm going to talk a little bit about what the state, not just NYSERDA, but the state has done to advance and develop the geothermal industry. But first, happy anniversary, happy 10th anniversary, New York-GEO. As John just mentioned, before coming to NYSERDA a little over 8 years ago, I was a volunteer at New York-GEO, and I was at the first Geopalooza. And what I'll say is New York State was committed and supportive of them from back then. Not specifically NYSERDA, but New York State. For those of you probably remember, the keynote speaker for the first geothermal conference at Skidmore College was Greg Hale. And at that time, he was representing the governor's office. So the governor sent a representative to the first geothermal conference to speak and talk about the support for that industry. But since then, a lot has happened.
Well, we can't talk for a long time about
I know. He's got the hook on me. First of all, I have to thank CMC Services for me using a couple of their slides as graphics here. But it starts with the governor and her strong support for climate change and a commitment to it. And she's worked with the legislatures, you've heard just before, to pass laws. She's directed state agencies and authorities to come up with regulations, policies, and programs. The primary agencies are Public Service Commission, DEC, NYPA, and NYSERDA. And we've also reached out and worked closely with stakeholders like NY-GEO and other organizations. So what I'm going to talk about some of the things that's happened over the last 10 years. Here are some of the laws. This is not all inclusive. I know we heard about others coming up, but starts with the Climate Act, the geothermal tax credit, and I know you're working on increasing that cap to $10,000, so good luck with that. The Utility Thermal Energy Networks and Jobs Act, allowing utilities to now own and operate thermal energy networks. This is one that very few people know about or hear about. Advanced Building Codes, Appliance and Equipment Efficiency Standards Act of 2022. This is important because it establishes appliance and equipment efficiency standards. And as we know, ground source heat pumps is the most efficient HVAC appliance on the market today. Last year's budget bill directing NYPA to do feasibilities in the top 15 highest greenhouse gas emitting state facilities, the borehole bill we talked about, and local law 97. All these laws impact and benefit and help geothermal. Going on to other things like in terms of incentives, right? First cost is an issue. We started, NYSERDA started incentives back in 2015. The utilities took it over in 2020 and still today and going forward, New York State Clean Heat. One program that I launched in 2021 called the Community Heat Pump Program, I'm highlighting that because we supported feasibility studies, design, and construction support. And that pond supported 2 of the largest multifamily residential geothermal projects in the state. One, 1515 Surf Coney Island, and the other in 1 Java Street in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. Most of the feasibility studies that we've done, I encourage you to come to our panel later on so you hear how many of them we've done. The primary thermal source is geothermal, backed up with waste heat recovery, wastewater, and others, but geothermal is the core technology being explored. In terms of market development, just geothermal in general, these are the barriers. It's been this way forever. The high cost, the lack of consumer awareness, and lack of trained workforce. These are some of the things we're working through. So one of the things we've done, a year or so ago, we have a consortium agreement with NY-GEO. So we have an agreement with NY-GEO. We meet regularly to help them build their revenue, their membership, and offer more robust services. So we're kind of joined at the hip there. Consumer awareness, our marketing team, we have targeted geothermal spots that we're running in some key markets in New York. We have co-op advertising that we co-op advertising with manufacturers and contractors at the local level. Workforce development, and I get into all the details. So, geothermal supply chain development. I know Scott Smith and my team has been working on that, and CMC services. We talk to the entire supply chain. Some of you are in the room today. And one of the key findings that came out of it is number 1, we need to create demand, and number 2, we need to train a workforce. And also, too, I know this is one thing you hate hearing from me, but we do need to find cost compression in this. So I'm not saying lower your prices. We just need to find, okay, give me that. We do need to find ways to bring the cost down. In terms of next steps in the things I'm working on, as we mentioned a couple weeks ago, my focus and title changed. Now my team is called Community Thermal Networks. We're focused on larger scale infrastructure projects. And that's really the future. Thermal energy networks, giving me the hook already. And we're looking to launch a new pond by the end of the 3rd quarter, maybe next month or 2, focusing on minimizing grid impact. As Jens just talked about, we need to put in technologies that use less electricity, so building and heat pump efficiency, leverage other technologies, waste heat recovery that Jens just talked about, explore different business models. And we keep hearing about sustainability and the 3-legged stool, people, planet, profit. I need to hear about how we make profits. How do we create profitable business models in the space? And really explore, first, the best opportunities for thermal energy networks, which we're finding are campuses. Whether it's colleges, multifamily, hospital, or office complexes, then we'll move on to other areas, communities like what utilities are looking to explore. And of course, we have to develop projects in and that support disadvantaged communities. So with that, now I'm going to go through my test here.
All right,
I got it.
we're just doing it. It's raw.
Oh, no. She told me, she did it? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. On the fly here.
But there was trouble with that.
There was trouble with that?
Yeah.
So go ahead, you get it up. What I'm showing you now is a spot that was created by NYSERDA, geothermal spot. This is a spot that's running in various markets. So you're seeing now what NYSERDA is doing to help build this market.
Smartphone average lifespan, 2.5 years. No incentives. Built to be upgraded. Refrigerator average lifespan, roughly 10 years. No tax credits. Built to be replaced. Geothermal heat pump average lifespan, 25 years or longer. Lots of incentives. Built to last. Invest wisely. Switch to a geothermal heat pump that's built to stand the test of time. And say goodbye to your oil or propane bill forever. Find incentives and tax credits at cleanheat.ny.gov.
It is now my pleasure and honor to introduce our keynote speaker for today, Rory Christian, chair of the New York State Public Service Commission, who I will say is truly an inspiration to me and to many others, I'm sure. So in October 2021, after serving as commissioner, Rory was appointed chair and CEO of the New York State Public Service Commission. Mr. Christian began his career in the energy industry with Keyspan Energy as a civil engineer before transitioning to a role engaging government agencies operating in Long Island and New York City. In his role, he was responsible for coordinating activities between Keyspan and government organizations, negotiating contracts, developing contingency plans, and streamlining operations to satisfy the operational needs of both organizations. Mr. Christian then transitioned to Exelon Energy, where he developed new products targeting public sector clientele and helped facilitate the creation of multiple partnerships and alliances. Mr. Christian then served as the Director of Energy Finance and Sustainability for the New York City Housing Authority, where he oversaw the authority's $500 million utility portfolio with an aim to reduce annual energy expenditures while achieving city, state, and federally mandated greenhouse gas emissions reduction requirements. More recently, he was director of the New York Clean Energy Environmental Defense Fund, where he provided strategy, management, programming, business development, and stakeholder collaboration for the Clean Energy Program. He oversaw a multidisciplinary team consisting of economists, lawyers, and engineers to design, implement, and manage legislative and policy campaigns to lower the environmental impact of electricity production. Mr. Christian currently teaches energy efficiency courses at the Columbia University School of Professional Studies. Rory Christian, please step. Oh, you are. Okay. It's a good thing you don't have slides.
Wait, you're not going to put my slides up?
Don't start.
So, John, how much time do I have? I know we're a little behind this morning.
How much time do you have? You have probably 15 minutes.
15 minutes. Okay, you said I had an hour when we started this, so. All right, well, I'm glad the room is warmed up. I want to, express my sincere thanks and appreciation for all of you coming here today. This is my third concurrent working day event. I did one on Friday, did one yesterday. This is my third. I'll do one tomorrow in Lower Manhattan. And I got to tell you, so far this has been the most largely attended event. And this is just a testament to the power of NY-GEO and their influence in bringing this industry to New York. When I first attended probably that event that Greg Hale spoke at many years ago, I think maybe a quarter of the people in this room were there. So to see the growth, the number, and the interest is really, really amazing and spectacular. So thank you, NY-GEO, for your advocacy and work in bringing this about. So thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause. Good. So I want to also thank Donovan for the great introduction, Jens for that really compelling presentation. I got a much more detailed version of it, and I'm hoping you're going to be giving that later today. Am I right? Yes? No? No? Okay. Okay. Keep them wanting more? Is that what it is? Yeah, I'll be there in the fall. Don't worry. If I'm invited, I don't know. You can't count on an invitation every year. So, again, my name is Rory Christian. I am the chair of the Public Service Commission of New York State and the CEO of the Department of Public Service. Many of you know what those agencies are, but for those who don't, the Public Service Commission oversees the regulation of investor-owned and a number of municipal utilities throughout the state of New York. We help guide the investments they make to ensure that you receive safe, reliable, affordable utility services at just and reasonable rates while protecting the natural environment. Now, we at the Commission consist of 7 members. Right now we're 6. We're going through a transition. We're replacing 2 commissioners with 2 new commissioners. We'll, again, be at 6. And the Department of Public Service consists of roughly 500 civil servants, ranging from accountants to lawyers and engineers and everything in between. This multidisciplinary group is the brains and brawn behind the power of the Commission, developing the policies and practices that ultimately are adopted by the Commission during our monthly meetings. And we meet every month, second or third Thursday, around 10:30 a.m. for those interested. Now, my role here today, I want to provide you guys with an overview of our current energy policy landscape. And Donovan actually did a really good job of highlighting the various heat pump related things that we are doing, so I will skip over that 15-minute part of my presentation. But what I will do is I want to focus my time with you today on the nature and the role of the Commission, the work we do, historical ramifications of our efforts, how they relate to the goals of the CLCPA, and how that connects to the work you guys are all involved in, the various challenges and opportunities that this work provides us in helping us manage our energy systems. And note, I said energy systems, so I mean not just the electric system, but also the natural gas system and the steam systems where they are. And I'll close by highlighting a number of various ongoing Commission actions that might be relevant above and beyond what Donovan shared. Before I go into more detail, I want to just make a few clarifying statements. I often find people assume we at the Commission have ownership of assets, that we own the generation or the T&D system. We do not. We neither produce nor transmit energy in any form. Again, we regulate the utilities in New York State. We also don't have oversight over all fuels. You go fill up your gas tank, you buy number 2, 4, or 6 oil, kerosene, propane. That's not us. We don't regulate the fuels, we regulate the utilities. And that's an important distinction that I think helps level set our role in New York State. Now, it is through the regulation of the various utilities in New York State that we at the Commission are taking a leadership role in making the climate leadership in the Community Protection Act a reality. As you know, the CLCPA was passed by the legislature and signed by Governor Hochul into law in 2019. And this sets many of the energy and climate goals that we in New York and we at the Commission are trying to achieve. First among them is a commitment to generate 70% of our energy, electricity, from renewable energy sources by 2030. 70% renewable energy by 2030. That will lead into, by 2040, having 100% emissions-free generation. Now, you might think, what's the difference between renewable energy and emissions-free? Well, there's a big difference, and we at the Commission are actually charged with defining that difference. We have an active ongoing proceeding where some of you may have provided comments, where we're looking to define what those technologies will be that will be considered emissions-free, that will make up the mix of our generation assets to help us achieve that goal. That's going on right now for those interested. And all of that work is with the ultimate goal of decarbonizing our economy, reducing GHG emissions to 85% of what they were in the 1990s. Now, the Commission, being the lead agency in the implementation of the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, we take this role very seriously. So we're not only going to achieve these goals, but we're going to also maintain our mandate for providing reliable, affordable utility services at just and reasonable rates while protecting the natural environment. You're going to hear that a lot. That's our motto. And we have a long history. Some think our commission actions started and ended with deregulation in the 90s, and that was a significant impact. But I think our actions actually go back far further. Right after World War II, the commission and one of my predecessors, a former chair, worked closely with the regulated utilities in New York State. And what we did, we engaged the Federal Power Commission, precursor agency to FERC. And what we did at the time was something that ultimately laid the landscape for the energy system we have today. Working with our sister utilities, our sister states, we lobbied the federal government to ensure that investments in the interstate natural gas pipeline system would bring natural gas to New York State in sufficient quantities, not only to replace the coal and oil that was dominating the industry at the time, but to allow for additional capacity to support our economic growth. This was a policy initiative pushed forward by the Commission in partnership with other states, other utilities, and the impact is the environment we have today. What's been the result? Well, cleaner than the alternatives, natural gas has led to significant reductions in our pollutions. SOx, NOx, PM 2.5, and other local climate issues are far less significant than they were in the 1940s and 50s. And random question, show of hands, anybody here watch Mad Men? Okay, for those of you who've watched Mad Men, there was an episode where Don Draper is standing on his balcony in New York City, and the sky in the middle of the day was jet black from all the smut and pollution in the atmosphere. That was the reality of New York City and New York State for many, many decades. And it's through the Commission's actions that we have far cleaner air and far easier atmosphere. Our environmental benefits are all around us for us to feel and see through those actions. And so I bring this up not because I love natural gas. I know my audience, I'm getting somewhere. But because this highlights that the Commission is not a static entity. Our energy policy is not monolithic. It changes with time. 100 years ago, most of the energy used in New York City, New York State, was coal or oil. And today it is natural gas. 100 years from now, it will likely be 100%. Well, hold on, wait a minute. No, not even 100 years from now. Less than 50 years from now, it will be largely electricity. And I imagine where the future will take us. But when I think about energy, I don't just think about it in terms of generation, because when I think about it that way, it limits the scope and the potential opportunities ahead of us. And I bring up our history in World War II, post-World War II, because it illustrates the nature of the evolution of the policies the Commission brings to bear. Imagine the 1940s, coal trucks, oil trucks, in the middle of winter, frozen roads. How difficult would it have been to get that delivery you needed to heat your home before natural gas came about? During the worst of times, when the need was greatest, people could often be literally left in the cold, waiting for their energy to show up when they needed it most. And natural gas changed that. And this highlights a key aspect of what we at the Commission try to accomplish, that reliability component of our energy infrastructure. The energy systems we have today are designed with the goal of working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And that means they need to be designed to handle every possible scenario, low use conditions and extreme conditions and everything in between. And what this means is we need to make some significant investments to ensure that the system can operate under those various circumstances. For the electric system, those extremes are the hottest days of the year, high humidity, high heat, and that usually occurs around 100 hours out of the year, 1% of the time. And the gas system is similarly designed. It's designed to handle the coldest day of the year. Now you're all probably wondering, well, it hasn't really been that cold, and I would agree. I remember winters of youth where I was freezing, whereas I've sometimes in recent memory not really even needed a coat in December. But that doesn't change the fact that those cold days still happen. And we need to be able to provide that energy on those extremely cold days, even though they are rarer than they were. They still happen. So those investments are essential and necessary to maintain the system while the systems are operating. Now, whether we're talking gas or electric, again, ensuring reliability is our paramount importance. And we have to make sure we have the investments in place to manage the system at all times. But those peaks are very costly. Less costly than investments in managing those peaks are investments in lowering energy use. Donovan mentioned several of them. We at the Commission have spent roughly $7 billion in the last few years on energy efficiency investments to help address the peak, bringing it down, both on the natural gas and on the electric side. And though we've had great success in lowering our total energy use, the peak has proven to be incredibly stubborn, very difficult to manage. And as the peak rises, so does the need for larger and more complicated investments in managing it. As the peak rises, so does our ability to manage reliability diminish. And it also, as the peak rises, so do costs for consumers. So when I look at my role as chair of the Public Service Commission, when I look at the role of DPS staff and what we are trying to accomplish, everything boils down to managing the peak. Our ability to take that 100 hours of extreme use and shift it somewhere else or eliminate it altogether. Now, it's clear to me we're going to need more generation, and we're building that generation out through a significant number of investments. You're all probably aware of our Tier 1 renewable energy investment approach, where we procure several terawatt hours of energy from renewable energy, wind, solar, on a regular basis. We have battery storage goals, where we're deploying battery storage throughout the state to supplement and augment that renewable energy investment. But all of these things, again, are generation. Where I see the magic happening and where I see this event playing a really integral role is behind the meter, customer actions. I believe consumer action is one of the single greatest, most powerful forces in the universe. And the fact that each of you today has a cell phone, and not just a Motorola StarTAC, but a phone capable of doing far more than a telephone could have done 20, 30 years ago. Each of us has at least one, some of us two, a few three, in our pockets right now. 20 years ago, that would have been a rarity. Today, it's commonplace. 20 years might seem like a long time, but revolutions happen quickly, and this one is happening right before our eyes. When I started my career at a local utility, we had meter readers. You guys know what meter readers are? Right? Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I gotta know my audience, right? And you know, a meter reader goes around the house, checks the meter, looks at what's going on, and this is the least glamorous part of the work. Don't worry, I'm almost done, I'm getting there.
You're doing great.
Thank you very much. But the thing about meter readers is by the time they get to your home and read what's going on, you've already done all your damage. You've used your energy, and you're gonna get that bill 10 to 15 days later. So when I think of foundational to what we are all trying to accomplish and what works well with geothermal systems is the need for smart metering, advanced metering infrastructure that can read electric or gas use in 15-minute increments, provide that feedback back to the utility and to the consumer. And I have a personal story to share with some of you, two stories actually, pretty good ones. Both of them happened during the pandemic, at the height of the pandemic when you couldn't leave your house, so it's pretty bad. My air conditioner broke. I didn't know it broke, but I got an email notification from my utility telling me I had used 5 times more energy in my first week than I normally use in a given month. Now, I could have complained to my wife about running the air conditioner, but the air conditioner wasn't on. Looked around, right outside I see a frozen over condenser. So I called a repair, $1,000 later, as everything is fine. And you might think, wow, that's a pretty bad story, you paid $1,000. Well, here's what could have happened if that smart meter was not installed. I would have went a month, I would have used probably $500, $600 worth of electricity, again, 5 times what I normally use. I would have gotten my bill 15 days into the next billing period, where I'm well on my way to using another $500. So without that smart meter, I could have easily paid $2,000 more. Actually, no, sorry, that's not right. $2,000 compared to the $1,000 I did. So I was able to address a problem quickly, identify it, come up with a solution, and remedy it before it ruined the finances of my home. That's a level of engagement we did not have 20 years ago. And this is just the very beginning of that kind of relationship change that consumers will have with electricity. Now, I know each of you here are interested. You work in this space. But think about your friends. Think about your family. How many conversations do you have on a regular basis about lowering your energy bill with friends and family? How often do they understand what needs to happen? How often do they take the action? Most people do not feel enabled. Most people do not understand what they can do. Smart meters are the beginning of a tool to give them the capacity to understand how their actions affect their energy costs and the system overall. And we at the Commission are working very aggressively to make sure that that level of information can trickle down in a way where people can take the actions needed, both in terms of managing problems as they arise, but capturing opportunities as they become available. And one of the biggest opportunities I see is heat pumps. I'm not going to say ground source heat pumps. I'm sorry. I can't be biased on a technology, but heat pumps.
I think you did, actually. By not saying it.
So why do I see it this way? So one of the many programs the Commission has worked with the utilities to develop is something called a Bring Your Own Thermostat program. Show of hands. Anybody part of that program here? Well, no? Wow. Okay, that's... Despite the lackluster turnout in this group, this program has been wildly successful. We've seen 15% growth in enrollment year over year. And currently, this program, just to explain the weight of the program, you enroll a smart thermostat, an internet-connected thermostat, into a utility program that allows your local utility to control your temperature in your home by 4 degrees in either direction. So if you're heating, they turn the heat down. If you're cooling, they lessen the amount of cooling you get, plus minus 4 degrees in either direction. This program has provided us with 100 megawatts of flexibility so far, and it's just getting started. We estimate that if we were to fully electrify 2 million homes, one of the many goals we have for ourselves, that we would achieve roughly 2 gigawatts of load flexibility. That's 2 gigawatts of peak that I can play around with. That's 2 gigawatts of additional costs I can try my best working with the utilities to avoid. And that's just on the heating and cooling side of things. Another thing that broke in my house, my refrigerator. And this is when I really realized things were changing. During the pandemic, remember the supply chain shortages, you couldn't really get what you wanted. Well, I ended up buying whatever fridge I could find, I could get delivered as quickly as possible. I hate my fridge. Dislike it strongly. But what I realized, it allowed me to control its energy use. I could enroll it in similar programs here in New York State and allow the utility to control when the condenser on the fridge would turn on and off. Again, not a significant amount of load by myself, but you aggregate that across the 164 apartments in my building and the thousands of other apartments in my zip codes, you have a powerful tool for flexibility. So as more people buy more appliances that have that capability, as more people adopt heat pumps that are a significant portion of the flexibility we're going to see, this flexibility becomes a much more powerful tool than it has ever been at any point in the development of the energy system. And again, it's going back to meter readers. We used to just send people out to read the meter and come back. We never had this level of granularity before, and now we do. And we're rapidly approaching the point where every utility, every residential customer of that utility will have the same capability to control their load. They'll have the option to not just be consumers of energy, but flexible users, prosumers of energy. The ability to know my bill is about to hit a certain threshold. If I do this, I can lower it. Or if I do that, I can get a payment. And if I have an EV, that completely changes what one can do. So, hopefully, you're all hearing that flexibility is going to be critically important. And all the work that we at the Commission are doing is with the goal of making the system more flexible, more adaptable, and more equitable. All our actions are aligned with achieving the CLCPA while maintaining the reliability of the system. And the work you're all engaged in will play a critical role in making that a reality. And so, I want to thank you all for your time today, and I want to wish you Godspeed and good luck, because you are all a part of changing the world in a way that I don't think any of us will appreciate fully until it happens, but our children most certainly will. So thank you all.